Just a few days ago, almost no one noticed a major change that was slowly taking shape in the Middle East. But now it's clear a new phase of tension is beginning. The three powerful countries in the Gulf, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates, which have long been in a defensive position, now seem ready to go on the offensive. And what's even more surprising is that all of this happened in just 4 days. If someone had said this just a few days ago, most people probably wouldn't have believed it. But now, according to reports from various intelligence sources, all three of these countries are starting to prepare for a direct attack against Iran.
Iranian-American journalist Lisa Daftari joins us now. Well, my friend, the embassy of the United States in Saudi Arabia has been hit by Iranian drones. Israeli media was reporting that Qatar has already carried out airstrikes against Iran, though Qatar denies that. Even Axios is reporting that the UAE might potentially join in.
And that's not all. As the situation heats up, Pakistan also issued a strong warning. A warning that could push the entire region toward a nuclear confrontation if the tension completely gets out of control. So to understand how the situation reached this point, we need to go back to where it all began. According to analysts, the crisis started because of a major miscalculation by Iran. Instead of targeting only the countries directly involved in the initial attack against them, Iran decided to retaliate against Gulf countries that actually had nothing to do with the original strike. One example of this is an incident that happened in a residential area in Qatar. In that place, which is usually just a quiet, civilian community, a strike suddenly hit, causing intense fear and shock among the residents. In just a few seconds, an ordinary night turned into a scene of chaos, smoke, and the sirens of emergency vehicles. That incident served as the trigger that is now changing the entire balance of power in the region. Because for the Gulf countries, this is no longer just a simple tension. For them, this is a direct message and a reason to prepare a response that could open up a bigger conflict in the Middle East. And if this escalation continues, the world might soon witness a war bigger than most people expect. Now, this is Iran's explanation for why they are carrying out these attacks. According to them, they are not capable of striking the mainland of the United States itself. So instead, their targets are said to be American military bases within the Middle East. At first glance, that explanation seems logical, but when you look at the actual places being hit by the strikes, a different story comes out. It's not military bases that are being targeted. The ones being hit are apartment buildings, shopping malls, airport, and port infrastructure. These are places used by ordinary civilians every night. In other words, these are not military targets, these are civilian areas that are being deliberately hit. In a statement, an Iranian official explained their position. According to him, Iran had no other choice but to defend itself. And because they cannot directly hit United States territory, they are forced to target American bases and facilities within the region. But there is a big problem with this explanation. Even if they say their targets are US bases, when the missiles or drones fail, it is the cities and communities of Gulf countries that get hit. And even if the air defense of those countries intercepts Iran's drones, the debris falling from the sky still poses a danger to their own citizens. In other words, even if they are not directly hit, they are still affected. And Iran's answer to the countries that are angry is simple. According to them, they should not be blamed. Instead, they say America should be blamed because they started the war. In another statement, an Iranian official said that they are not attacking others. According to him, they are only targeting American facilities in the region. But despite these explanations, it is not working in the way Iran expected. In fact, it is only making the situation worse. Because as the attacks continue, more countries are starting to ask, why is Iran doing this? Why are they attacking countries like Oman, which has long been helping Iran in negotiations? and diplomatic talks? And why is Cyprus, a country that has almost nothing to do with this war, also becoming a target? The answer to this question has only recently come out, and according to a report by the Financial Times, this entire strategy was created by the former supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah, himself after a 12-day war in which Iran suffered a severe defeat. After that war, he made a plan, and the plan was direct and clear. If ever there is another war, not just one country should feel the pain. Instead, make the whole Middle East feel it. The order was to target energy facilities, hit apartment buildings, disrupt airports and air travel, and attack any important infrastructure that could cause chaos throughout the region. The goal of this strategy is to escalate the war until it becomes unsustainable. The cost for the United States to continue would be too high. According to an insider from the Iranian regime who spoke with the Financial Times, this is not just a temporary plan. This is a continuous strategy that will be implemented and further expanded as the war goes on. But there is another important part of this plan. This strategy has a religious dimension. The Ayatollah devised the plan, and now he is dead. But for many ideological supporters of the regime, this is not just a simple military strategy. This is an order from their leader that must be respected. So even if there are signs that the plan is having problems, they do not consider it a failure. Instead, for them, this is fulfilling the last wish of their supreme leader. And there's another reason why it's hard to stop now. When the 12-day war happened, Israel quickly targeted the highest-ranking officials. In just a few hours, almost the entire top leadership of their military command was wiped out. Because of this, their retaliation was delayed by 2 days because all orders at that time were coming only from the top leadership. But now the system is different. Iran is prepared for this kind of situation. The military units have already been given their own authority and preset instructions. This means that even if the central leadership is lost, operations can still continue. In an interview with Al Jazeera, the Iranian foreign minister even confirmed this. According to him, the small units within the IRGC and other military groups already have the freedom to carry out retaliation, even without direct orders from above. But there is one thing that Iran did not expect. The plan that was made to force America to withdraw is having the opposite effect. Instead of the United States withdrawing, more countries in the region are starting to consider joining the war against Iran. And according to former U.S. General David Petraeus, this is one of Iran's biggest miscalculations in this entire crisis.
It is clear, I think, that Iran has made a decision not just to go after the U.S. bases and Israeli targets, but to go after the countries of the Gulf Cooperation Council and other countries in the region, even if they did not allow us to use their bases for these operations. And frankly, I think that is a big miscalculation on the part of Iran, because what they have done is bring countries into this fight that actually had sought to sit it out and now are going to have to be involved, at the very least, in aircraft, contributing to the defense mission and over time perhaps contributing to the offensive mission, even as the intense campaign by the U.S. and Israeli forces goes forward.
In Iran's plan, attacking the Gulf countries was supposed to put pressure on the United States. But what happened was the opposite. Instead of the United States backing down, the Gulf countries became even more convinced that Iran is a serious threat that needs to be stopped. If you think about it, the reason is clear. When a country is willing to destroy an entire region just to stay in power, that's not the kind of government you'd want as a neighbor. And think about what could happen if this kind of regime were to acquire nuclear weapons, or if they were to acquire more powerful ballistic missiles, weapons with a longer range and greater destructive power. This is exactly the reason why the actions of the Gulf countries are now changing. And let's start with Qatar, because if we look back at the situation just a year ago, they were one of the countries with the closest relationship to Iran. But now, That's no longer the case. First, Qatar cut all diplomatic ties with Iran. They closed their embassy and immediately evacuated all their staff from there. After that, they took a step that Iran did not expect. Listen to this.
In the last hour or so, the Qatari Ministry of Defense has announced that it shot down a number of drones and missiles. But crucially, it has shot down 2 Su-24 Soviet-made third-generation fighter bombers, and it has shot them down as they were coming towards Qatari space. And they say this was done by the Emiri Air Force. This does suggest that there was some air-to-air combat here, and it is a significant step forward. It's one thing for Iran to launch missiles and drones as it has done in the past. That was sort of accepted as something that could happen. But to fly jets toward another sovereign state, and for that state to use its air force, a GCC country using its own military to take on Iranian threats, this is an escalation of sorts. It was one thing to have the US and Israel attack Iran retaliating, and GCC countries defending themselves. But using fighter aircraft to defend itself, to shoot down piloted aircraft coming in from Iran, that certainly is a military escalation. The Qatari government, the Ministry of Defense, said yesterday it began using its fighter aircraft to intercept threats coming in from Iran. Further away from its land space in the waters over the Gulf. And it did that to limit the amount of damage that was being caused by debris falling due to the use of Patriot defense systems to intercept threats over populated areas. And now we're seeing that they have shot down, they say, 2 Su-24 jets that were coming in from Iran.
The Qatari Air Force almost exclusively uses Western aircraft. Most of them are American F-15 fighter jets, but they also have French Rafale and some British aircraft. And just recently, one of those jets managed to shoot down an Iranian Su-24 fighter jet. This is yet another example of how Russian military technology is struggling to keep up with Western systems. But that's not the main topic of this video. The more important point here is this. This shows that Qatar is now ready to fight if necessary. From Qatar's perspective, what Iran is doing now directly threatens everything they have worked hard to build for many decades. So it's no surprise why they are also ready to fight back. And Qatar is not the only one affected by Iran's attacks. Other countries in the Gulf, especially Saudi Arabia, have also become targets. And according to reports, what Iran did yesterday may have already crossed the line. Yesterday, Iran targeted Ras Tanura, the massive oil refinery of Saudi Aramco. This is the largest oil refinery in the world. Every day, almost 7% of the global oil supply passes through this facility. The refinery itself was not directly hit, but the debris from the drones that targeted the area caused a massive fire around the site. Because of that danger, Saudi Arabia was forced to temporarily halt the refinery's operations. This means that the world's largest oil refinery temporarily stopped operations because of Iran's attacks. And because of this, it's clear that Saudi Arabia did not plan to remain defensive while their main economic lifeline continued to be threatened. According to some Western diplomats, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Qatar are close to joining offensive attacks against Iran. In fact, there are reports saying that Qatar has already carried out a strike inside Iran in retaliation for the attacks on Doha International Airport, one of the busiest international airports in the world. However, Command, there is an important detail here. The Prime Minister of Qatar has not yet confirmed that particular report. But what he said was clear. Qatar has the right to defend itself and for Iran's attacks to stop. Whether a strike has already happened or not, the message remains the same. These countries are already preparing to launch a direct attack. According to military and diplomatic sources in the region, Saudi Arabia is about to allow its air force to launch airstrikes inside Iran. This comes after they experienced an unprecedented missile and drone attack against their civilians. This includes the missiles that recently targeted Dammam, the fifth largest city in Saudi Arabia. According to an official in the Gulf, the next 24 hours will be extremely intense. The limits have been surpassed. Another important reason why this kind of coordination is becoming possible is the change in the United States' military structure in the region. At the end of Donald Trump's first administration, Israel was included in the U.S. Central Command, or CENTCOM. Previously, Israel was part of the European Command because of its sensitive relationship with Arab states that did not recognize it at that time. But that changed after the Abraham Accords. Because of this, closer coordination of military operations between Israel and the countries in the region became more possible. Meanwhile, last night there was another incident. The U.S. Embassy in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, was hit by 2 Iranian Shahed drones. Fortunately, no U.S. personnel were killed or injured because there were almost no people in the embassy when the attack happened. Currently, there is a division of labor regarding the targets. Israel is focused on the Iranian leadership. This includes a meeting of senior religious scholars in Qom, where the remaining top religious leaders of Iran gathered to discuss who will succeed Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei. If we look back just 4 days ago, almost no one could have imagined this would happen. Back then, the Gulf countries were still neutral. They were even preventing the United States from using their airspace and military bases to attack Iran. But now, they are preparing to join the war. And at this point, many analysts are saying that Iran has no one else to blame but itself. But in the midst of all this, there is one aspect of the crisis that is largely unnoticed by many, and this could be the most dangerous of all: Pakistan. Last year, Pakistan and Saudi Arabia signed a mutual defense agreement, an agreement that is very similar to a NATO-style protection pact. This means that if someone attacks Saudi Arabia, it is also considered an attack on Pakistan. And if someone attacks Pakistan, Saudi Arabia is also obligated to help in its defense. Now, the Pakistani foreign minister has already issued a warning to Iran. He said that if Iran continues its attacks against Saudi Arabia, they need to remember the defense agreement between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. And it's important to remember one thing. Pakistan is a nuclear-armed nation. In fact, it is the only Muslim country in the world that has nuclear weapons. So if Iran continues its attacks against Saudi Arabia, the war could possibly escalate to the nuclear level. And the even more ironic thing about this situation is this: Pakistan has a large Shia population, the same sect of Islam that the supreme leader of Iran claims to lead. But now it might happen that Pakistan itself gets involved in the war against Iran.